Hello my friends, it's Ranger Russ from the Meggs Point Nature Center coming to you today from near the front entrance here at Hammonasset Beach State Park. We're going to do a little bit of an activity today and hopefully learn something about trees. So what we're going to do, you're going to need some materials for this. Let me set this down here. So what you need are some crayons. Very simple. Pieces of paper and a clipboard, some hard surface. We're going to be making leaf rubbings and leaf and bark rubbings. So we'll talk about the trees as we go. We're going to start out here at the entrance of the park and we're going to work our way along. Now, I've mentioned in other episodes, and if you want to see our other episodes, you can go to meggspointnaturecenter.org's virtual learning center or visit Meggs Point Nature Center's YouTube channel. But you can see a lot more about trees in some of those episodes, especially when I'm walking through the forest for some of our park visits. But when you're looking to do a leaf rubbing and especially a bark rubbing, you want to find trees that are not in this thick cover that we have over here. If you look at these trees, these are in some pretty thick cover. I can't even get to the trunk of the tree. You want to watch out for poison ivy. But also, when a tree is growing in thick cover like this, the leaves are going to be much higher up on the tree. You're going to have to get higher to reach those branches. When a tree grows out in the open in a field, the branches are lower, the tree will be able to, you'll be able to reach the leaves better because those branches are lower. Now, if you look here, I do want to show you a couple of trees here. The first one I want to show you is that tree there. You see this one with the, again, compound leaves. It's a whole bunch of leaflets off of one stem of a tree. This is the tree of heaven. This is an invasive species. A tree of heaven were planted intentionally because they're a beautiful ornamental. They're very fast growing, but they overtake areas and nothing else will grow there. Another interesting tree that's growing out here by the entrance of the park are aspen. I think this one's a quaking aspen. There are lots of different aspens called quaking because it looks like they're in an earthquake, the way the leaves go back and forth. It's kind of like glad hands on a tree, the leaves just rocking back and forth. So there's two trees. There are some larger ones in the back, but again, I can't get at them to do the bark rubbing. So we're going to move out into the field and see if we can find some trees that we can use. And I know there's actually one here because I walked by on the way out. So let's go look. Aspens are amazing trees. I'll do a whole program on them at some point. Just the way they're all connected. In an area, they're all connected. It's probably just one tree. So here we have some beautiful pin oaks. Now these were probably planted when the entrance of the park was first put in. The pin oak grows in a really nice shape. If it's in the open, it can grow almost a perfect, like an arrowhead. So I'm going to move back, see if we can look at this tree. It's got that pretty nice arrow-like shape to it. Okay, so that's a really nice tree there. Okay. Now, for this program, you are going to need a leaf. Normally I would say don't pick leaves off of trees, but for this program we need a leaf. We're only going to take one though. So we're going to be really careful. I'm going to set this down so that I can use both my hands. And I'm going to show you the trunk and the leaves, hopefully. Someone's saying perfect weather day to do an investigation. It is absolutely gorgeous out here. It's a bit breezy when you're out on the beach, but it's actually a cool breeze out on the beach there today. Okay, so what we're going to do first, I'm just going to select a leaf. Now, similar to the tracking program, you want to look for the most typical leaf. So when you're looking for tracks, you want the most intact, typical looking track. So if you look at leaves, if you find one that, like this one's missing the top part, this one looks like some bugs have eaten on it, and this one looks pretty typical of all the rest. So we're going to select a typical leaf. The pin oak can be identified by these deep grooves, these deep notches in the leaf, very narrow lobes on the leaf. So we're just going to put that on our paper. Let me pan down so you can watch that. All right, so our leaf is there, and now we just grab a crayon. Let's do a dark color, hopefully it'll show up better. And we're just gonna rub it down. Many of you have probably done leaf rubbings in the past. Now the stem is gonna hold the crayon off a little bit. So I like to go from the side of the stem out, like that. And then we'll go down the stem just to get the stem, make sure we see the stem. So there is our leaf rubbing. So next we're going to do bark rubbing. So hopefully you can see the bark of that tree right there. I'm going to take my paper, you guys just stay right there. Again, you want to find a nice typical part of the bark. So there's some really smooth parts, there's some really rough parts. You want somewhere moderate so you get a good idea of what the bark of this tree looks like. Typical bark of the tree. So we're going to rub it, make sure you get in all those grooves. The higher ridges will come out much darker, the inner ridges will be lighter, so it helps you to identify it. And then I like to write on it what it is. So we're just going to write pin oak. Okay, so you can see we've got a nice bark rubbing there, a nice leaf. Now we can go out, and when we see another pin oak, we'll have an idea what the bark and the leaf look like. So let's put this away, and we're going to move on and see what other trees we can find. Let's take a look, see what comments we have here. It's bright out here, so it's a little difficult for me to read these. Let's see. Better rubbing these than gravestones. I've never done the gravestones. All right. Now, most people will pass by evergreens because they're needled, it's hard to do a rubbing. We're gonna do this red cedar juniper here. And again, this is another tree that I've already done a program on. So you can go into the virtual learning center and see that. Here's a nice branch that's pretty low to the ground. So I'm going to show you, you can do it with needles. It is a little more difficult, but it can be done. So actually this is right on the ground. I can leave it attached to the tree. So again, you're looking for a typical part of the tree. You want average when you're doing things like this. Tracking is the same way. Bird identification, you want something that is going to be typical of most animals. So we put that down and we can rub all these out here. Broke my crayon. It's a good idea to do these with your older crayons. You can do it with sidewalk chalk. Okay, so we have a good idea. These are the really nice parts of the needles. And then if we turn this, you guys can see the bark. Let's see. So here we've got, look at how shaggy this is. So it's really, I'm very curious sometimes when I come upon something like this. I don't ever remember doing bark rubbing on a cedar tree, so be curious to see what it looks like when it's rubbed in here. So already I see this line here. It's really cool. That's just a piece of the shagginess. It's just growing, flaking off there. All right. So there we've got our red cedar. And we're going to write red cedar. Okay. So, you know, a lot of times I don't like to show you guys when I write things because I'm a really lousy speller. You know, I actually have dyslexia, and it makes it really challenging sometimes when I have to write on a board in front of school kids. But you shouldn't be embarrassed by it. Don't let that hold you back. If you've got dyslexia, you can do what anybody else can do, or anything that's challenging. You can do it. I learned how to do it. So can you. All right, so we're going to put our crayons back in, and we're going to move on and find our next tree. All right. So over here, these trees are really close together and have nice low branches, which is why I chose the front of the park. Here we've got a really nice sugar maple. Now, anybody that likes syrup on their pancakes knows about sugar maples, and I love these trees. They're so cool. Look at that leaf. All right, so we're going to set up right here and do our leaf rubbing of a sugar maple. There, let me first check and see if we've got any questions. Somebody says, me too. Probably about dyslexia. Our last governor of Connecticut had dyslexia, and he was pretty open about it. So I figure if the governor of Connecticut can talk about it, then I can talk about it. All right, so let's pick another color. We're in a darker area in here, so I'm going to go with a lighter color. You guys should be able to see this. Look how big a sugar maple leaf can be. That's one of the things that you can tell a red maple from a sugar maple. The red maple's leaves don't generally get as large, but a really cool thing about them, red maples, this little notch between the lobes is a V, and a sugar maple, it's rounded, it's a U, and there's a U in sugar. So there's a good quick tip for identifying sugar maples versus versus red maples. The Norway maple, though, looks a lot like a sugar maple. So that's an entirely different tree that's an invasive that we really don't like to see. Wow, this is a really light color. Maybe I should go a little darker orange there. That's better. Look at that. That's pretty cool. This is one of those projects. It's like the leaf just jumps out as soon as you start coloring it in. All the veins are visible. This is a really nice one. Obviously, this is a lot nicer to do this with a nice broadleaf deciduous tree than those pine trees. So let's show you. Look at how cool that looks. All that veining is right there. And now let's see if we can spin you. Still getting used to this gimbal thing. So you can see the tree. There we go. We'll pick a nice part of this tree to do. This tree looks a lot, the bark looks really similar to the pin oak that we did over on the other part, except that these ridges are much deeper. So you're showing these really long ridges with the sugar maple. Not a lot shows up in between the ridges on the sugar maple. So now we'll put, it's a good idea to write it as soon as you do it, because you get back to the wherever you're going and you're gonna have a whole stack of them, and then you're trying to figure out what tree was what. And then you try and go in order, see if you can figure out the order that you went in. All right, let's take a look and see if we have any questions, and then I can do some more trees if we have time. Someone says it's good for all ages. Apparently I'm a walking dictionary. I'm not actually a walking dictionary. I forget a lot of things as I go. Oh, there's a good question. Do we care for the peach trees out on Megs? And it's actually Willard Island has the really cool peach tree. And we do. I did a Willard Island talk, so you can go back in the archive and look at it. But it's mostly volunteers that take care of them, and it's really just removing the invasive so the tree is able to grow without having to compete with invasive species. We don't prune them for fruit. So if you wanted to get that big, beautiful fruit that you see in a store, it could be done. We could prune those trees down quite a bit and try and get some of that bigger fruit. But for the most part, we're just trying to allow the tree to continue to grow without competing with invasives. So we'll clear all the invasives from under the tree. They really like to try and grow up. So yeah, we do a little bit of care for the peach trees out there, and there's apples and pears out there as well. All right, any other questions? All right, no other questions. Let's move along here and see what other things we can find, what other trees. So again, this is just the entrance to the park. This isn't even really out on any of our trails. So it's pretty neat that almost anywhere in this park, you've got really cool things to look at. Here's I'm gonna flip the camera so you can see this tree. I can control it a little better this way. Now it's reverse of what I was doing, but that's okay. Look at this tree. This is one of those deciduous evergreens. Or, I just totally messed that one up. Not a deciduous evergreen. It's a conifer that loses its needles. Okay? So deciduous is broadleaf, lose leaves typically. Conifer are narrow leaf and it stays green all year, but the larch is narrow leafed, narrow needled, but the needles fall off. So it's actually too high up. I can't do a leaf rubbing of it. I could do a bark rubbing, but I love larch trees. As far as I know, this is the only place at Hammonasset that we have larch trees. So here's something we should talk about. These small trees, you can do the leaf rubbing of them. This is a cherry tree, but the bark of these trees change as they grow. Okay, you can see that looks fairly smooth. That is poison ivy. Do not touch that. Really watch out when you're out looking to do leaf rubbings and things. Watch out for the poison ivy. There's some just below my knee here, so I got to make sure I don't touch it. But this tree, when it gets bigger, the cherry tree gets a really rough bark. Now, this pine cone here, this is from the larch. It just fell and landed in the cherry tree. So that's another thing you want to look out for. sometimes the branches of a tree will grow through the branches of another tree, and it's really deceiving. So what I'm going to do here, though, we're going to do a leaf rubbing of the cherry. And this looks like a good leaf right here. So we're going to do a cherry tree, and I set my clipboard in the poison ivy. Let's move out here. And the reason I'm doing this is because I know where we have some cherry tree bark that I can reach. So when we get over there, I will be able to do a bark rubbing. All right, so we've got a tan color here. So see, again, we're going out from the vein, and then we'll go down the vein. Really simple. And you can see this is the veining of the leaf. All the leaves have veins, and actually you can identify some of the trees by the leaf veining. For example, if you look at this is very similar to a dogwood. It would be larger, but the dogwood veining would stretch and come all the way down. This veining goes pretty much out to the edge. A dogwood's going to curve along, so all the veining looks like it's going with the center vein. So really, you need to look at the tree, the leaves. Another way you can identify the teeth are going to be different. Some of the teeth are very small and pointed. Some of them are rounded. Dogwoods are smooth, so you're not going to have, or more smooth, you're not going to have that jaggedness there. Looks like a really fine saw blade, doesn't it? All right, let's move on. What kinds of veins hang from those trees? I think over here there were some bittersweet, and then I have some, the poison ivy is a vine that's growing up there as well. All right, let's head over to our cherry tree where we can get the bark. So if you're familiar with Hammonasset, I am heading towards there's our camp office over there. And off to my left is the main entrance road into the park. Some beautiful white pines. You can do a bark rubbing of those and the needles. But I'm looking for a cherry tree. I know there are some here. And I see that one. All right, we're going to use that cherry tree right there. Nope. My stabilizer is not holding up the camera right now. There we go. Every time I reverse the camera, I gotta reverse my head. All right, let's move over here. I think I'd be better at reversing things with dyslexia. So here you can see there is a vine growing up it. This is not poison ivy. This is Virginia creeper. Now some people actually have a reaction to Virginia creeper. I have never done it. I don't touch it too much though. But now this is one of the roughest barks. I think I just tore the paper already. I was just gonna say, you do tear the paper a little bit when you do a really rough bark. This one's really hard. It's not showing the full depth because they're big, deep grooves and you can't get the crayon down into all those cracks and crevices. There we go. Now that's a pretty rough bark on this one. Let me so you can see how rough the bark is. That really doesn't look like a whole lot, but so you're really going to be looking at the leaf for this one. But let's just put cherry. Okay, let me check and see if we've got any questions. Cromwell. Hello, Cromwell. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. So we can wrap it up here. I'm going to flip the camera back. Now, next week I'm going to be on vacation. I'm going to New Hampshire and I will be doing programs from New Hampshire. So we'll see if we can find things that are similar or different in New Hampshire, see if we can compare and contrast New Hampshire. It's only a few hours away, 6 or 8 hours away, depending on how far up you go. It could be even less than that. But it changes. The environment is completely different between Connecticut and New Hampshire. So we'll get to see that the trees will be a little bit different. The animals might be a little bit different. We'll see what we can find when I get up there. I'll still do the programs. I don't know if they're going to happen at the same time every day. We'll try and do them at 11 or 2. But it's going to be challenging because I'm going to be, driving around on vacation in New Hampshire. But you can look for those programs next week. And then the week after that, we're going to be going to just one program a day. Actually, in New Hampshire, I'll probably only be doing one a day. We'll do them once a day, and we might actually start doing Saturdays as well. So you'll have 5 programs a week instead of 4 programs a week. But that's coming up this week. We're going to continue 2 a day until Friday. Hopefully everybody's having as much fun watching as I am doing this. I'm really enjoying it. This is a very different learning experience for all of us. I've never done it like this before. So most of you probably haven't had to learn online and virtually. So we will see you all tomorrow at 11 and 2 o'clock tomorrow, and then through Friday. And then next week from New Hampshire, very excited I get to go on vacation. So we'll see you all tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Have a good afternoon.